Hello and welcome to another episode of Goa 365's Story Behind the Story. Now, there has been a lot of talk about amendments to the Goa Town and Country Planning 2023. We've seen these amendments. The most recent one, I think, maybe a month or so, a couple of months back. Before that, in the past 2 years, there have been amendments. Some have been taken back, some are still there. So, this is something that most people, at least in the state, are not too aware of unless they're directly affected. They're too busy in trying to, survive with petrol and the bad roads and the electricity and the water. So they are not concerned. But ultimately, it is important because we live in Goa and we have to maintain this and keep this Goa for ourselves when we live today and for our future generations. So today, to discuss this issue and create a little bit of awareness and actually tell us what is a very, very distinguished and senior panel in our studio today. I would like to introduce them, starting with architect Dean D'Cruz. Dean, welcome to our show. Dean has been a part of RP 2021, which is one of the first movements, at least I have seen, which actually brought civic society together, which was spearheaded by civic society, also of course helped by a lot of political forces, I can say. Let's not get into the party bit. Second is Dr. Sabina Martins. Ma'am, she's been an activist for a long time. She's been the head of the Goa Bachao Abhiyan that according to her, she says it's still alive. But once upon a time, it was the word, GBA was the word in most people's people, educated, certain level of people in Goa on their lips. Now she says it's alive. I'm sure she will defend that position. Sabina ma'am, a good friend of mine because we've been doing these shows for a lot. She's also a women's activist and Sabina ma'am, welcome to our show. After a long time, but welcome. Architect Armino Ribeiro. He's also a pretty noted architect. He's been involved with a lot of issues, he can tell you, in Goa. In Panjim mostly, Panjim based. Armino Bab, first time or now, welcome.
Thank you.
And last but not the least, Tahir Norona. He's an architect too, but he prefers to be known as an urban planner. He's been on our show, he's been involved in also things like the old Goa, at illegal bungalow and all that. Tahir Bab, welcome to our show. Dean, tell us what are these amendments, because I don't think a lot of Goa actually knows what exactly they are.
So actually, we're being faced by three major forces or changes which are happening, which is really, one is the change to the Town Planning Act, which was the 16B, which has now been kept in abeyance. It's been taken to court, but it's not yet been withdrawn by the government. But it's been replaced by this new, even more insidious clause, which is 17.2, which really talks about errors in the plan. But we've seen the examples of errors coming up which are far more devastating. On a second level, we have the ODPs. Now, people understand that the ODPs are separate for cities and separate for rural areas. But remember, the regional plan is for the whole of Goa. And an ODP is a subset of that thing. So whatever is settlement in an RP, only that is allowed to be detailed out in an outline development plan. Plus one has to do a next level of comprehensive development plan, which I'm quite sure Tahir will speak about. And then the third level are these amendments. And amendments are these basic, what they call building regulations. They look like some piece of paper, just say you can build so much and it can so many floors high, whatever. But if you actually go into the details and the impact of what these amendments can do, it is devastating for Goa. So I can read out quickly what the various amendments. And these amendments, 17 of them came a little earlier. They were withdrawn. I think basically they're testing the waters and saying that, is there, opposition to this thing? If there's not, okay, push through. If there's no opposition, you pull it back and you try again. So these amendments look very simple, but if you actually go into the wording which we've done, it really means that something wrong is happening. Some are minor, some are very, very major. So I just go one by one quickly to the amendments. And so one amendment, of course, is really now bringing engineer diploma. So people who just 2 years experience in some diploma somewhere can now be actually signing plans and making plans. So there's no real education of who's really actually looking after the development of Goa. The next is really about the use of, say, industrial plots in a lot of areas. I know industrial areas need maybe peripheral housing to the thing. But now when you introduce housing industrial plots, which you're actually increasing a lot of percentages into housing, you're now allowing almost an industrialization of residential things. So a lot of residential developments can go under the guise of industrial development. And you see industrial gets promoted by the government saying, it's for the benefit of the people, so many people are benefiting. This can go completely wrong. The dangerous one is really now what they're doing in terms of amendments, where basically farmhouses can be built in paddy fields, orchard areas. Now what are orchard areas? Orchard is natural cover. A lot of these natural cover areas are actually forested, and the forest department has been actually designating these lands as private forest. But we see these lands before the forest department can come, they quickly cut it so that it can't be designated as private forest. And these are under threat because these can also, with even the centre now looking very favourably at developing forested lands, this is a great danger for Goa because we can lose a great amount of. And initially the law just said 500 square meters of as a farmhouse in this thing, and later it was amended to 1,000 square meters. Now earlier in the bylaws it was mentioned that on the building regulations you can there's a 50 square meter farmer's house allowed in these orchard areas, without having to do all the sanad and everything. Now farmer's house 50 square meters. In Maharashtra, farmer's house is designated as 150 square meters. In Goa we now have 1,000 square meter farmhouses. The Adilcha Palace is about 1,200 square meters. So. And if you look at the villages in Goa, if you look at Asagaon, Aldona, everything, if you calculate the amount of orchard areas available, we can have 300 farmhouses in every village of 1,000 square meters, which is really devastating for Goa. So it's very dangerous to have.
What's the land area of that farm, minimum land area which you...
So the minimum land area is 4,000 square meters. It's actually not very much, Of course, it's 10% now. Before they tried to make it 15%, the public opposition, they make it 10%. They'll try, a little later they make it 50%. But the moment you introduce a clause of farmhouses, that thing percentage can change. Next day say 15%, next 20%, next 30%. And without knowing it, you'll have a great amount of impact on these things. And these are not farmers' houses. We know it's rich people's houses. They should say, call it rich people's houses, no? So why we hide that intent? Another one is really in terms of what do you think is parking and ramps and everything. It seems very minor, but these are controls of which really determine how much density. Because if you compromise on parking, we see what happens in Panjim, congestion, going into basements, all those things. A lot of basement areas are not accessible, so they convert them into shops and go downs and everything. So it's a minor thing, but can have a major impact. In open spaces, they allowed like these recreational facilities, clubhouses, whatever, which is like, they say 5%. Now they've changed the laws to say that 5% of a thing can be agglomerated so that you can have, suppose it's a very large complex, 5% and make it one big building. So suddenly, if you have many, many small plots, you don't have to build 5% of the small plots. It comes into one big plot. So again, it seems minor, but can have a major impact on a larger project. Another amendment is really it's about the basic sizing of plots, which seems minor, but I won't go into much detail with it, but it needs to be looked into by people carefully. And again, a greater impact on things. Another, which is fairly minor, is really in terms of amenities. Now, amenities are normally like substations and everything, but now amenities have been becoming parking, health clubs, hospitals, nursing homes, dispensary, post office, police station, ATMs, bank, library, open market. So suddenly amenities has gone into every definition. So you can do virtually anything in the amenity space. It's actually meant just for infrastructure thing. So eventually those will get displaced, and we won't have enough space for even those substations and everything there. Another minor one is really, what seems minor, is really the thing of regularization. They say regularize. Before it was, you can regularize something which is under 500 square meters. Now they say over 500, and you have to produce your electricity bill and things like that. But what they don't mention, are you the owner of that plot? So how do you regulate? So if you just produce your electricity bill, you regularize the house. You may not even own the land. So that's another danger. It's so loose-ended, and of course intendedly loose-ended. Another one is just amendment of setbacks, and we can allow for a little leeway here and there. It's basically to regulate buildings which have violated these things, which seems minor. Yeah, so that amendment, of course, was changing the 5% to 10%, which I spoke about in terms of farmers' regulations. And now the most dangerous one is really allowing road widths. Now they're compromising road widths. You must have seen that road widths are a major control. In any planning exercise across the world, a road width is, any development is based on a road width. The broader the road width, the more development you can have. In Goa, we had, you cannot build a house, more than one house, if a road is less than 6 meters. Yeah. Now they're lying with 6 meters, up to 6 meters, 6 meters or greater is 180 units. If it's less than 6 meters, now instead of one house, now you're allowed 8 houses. So the impact of all these roads, now a road, most of these tiny colonies, you look at PDA colony, the minimum road weight is 8 meters here. So these are less than even we have in existing colonies. And it doesn't mean that 6 meter road can now serve, or even less than 6 meter road, for this guy can build house, next one can build 8 houses, so you just add it up, and that same road can serve multiple complexes. So the law is extremely devious in the way they've actually worded it. So these are the basic issues that we face in this thing. It seems very simple and just a building bylaw or building regulation change, but the impact is tremendous, and I think we really need to be careful about this.
Actually, yeah, getting to Sabina on this, Sabina ma'am, now these laws, as Dean has said, they sound very innocuous would be the right word, like how giving somebody a injection or something. No, nothing. Now you are one of the people who initially brought up this public participation issue. So were the public, or Goans or whoever, civic society, whatever it is, were involved in this, and what's happened to that public participation for which you all fought for so long and
now,
so much through governments down, I think, I remember. Now the chief minister at that time is in the BJP today, but that's a different matter.
Yeah. The whole Goa Bachao Abhiyan movement started because of the regional plan. And when the plan was made, all the green cover which was there was painted red, so for settlement. And see, we are looking at protection of environment. We want to protect the fields so that we have food security. You see, during crisis, if no import of food happens, we will starve to death. So we have to protect our fields. Then we have to protect our water bodies, because water is very important. These are just basic things which we require for good life, to improve the quality of life. And planning has to be done by a participatory process. So our slogan at that time was, the plan should be by the people and of the people for the people. So as per the 73rd and 74th Amendment of the Constitution, the plans have to be prepared at the village level or at your municipality level, because people know the needs of their village, and we have certain criteria, like with all the how to protect the eco-sensitive zone, the water bodies, the criteria is there. You prepare your plans, and from bottom up it goes to the at the district level, and then the two district level maps, they merge, and you have your regional plan. Now this whole the regional plan was prepared after all that agitation and people made noise, so some aspect of participatory planning was introduced. Now because of the agitation, whatever went into the plan, people were watching, because everybody was on the streets, everybody was alert. As you said, there was media which was keeping a track. Now once the plan came into being, the private interest still continued, okay, and so there was a pressure on the government to appease them. And as far as the government is concerned, instead of looking at the common good or public good, they started making amendments to suit these private parties. And so these amendments started coming in. So whatever they couldn't do it in the regional plan because of people's pressure, this is a backdoor entry. Okay. Now you were asking me that time we were making so much of noise, and now GBA is not there, but GBA is working.
I'm sure you are making noise, but we can't hear it.
No, what I'm telling you is at that time we were out on the streets. Today, when every amendment comes, there is a change in the ODP process or what is in the plan, we are going to the court. Okay, so the battle is in the Goa Foundation, and Goa Bachao Abhiyan has gone to the court. So there, it's not like it's mass where people have come out on the streets, but GBA has been keeping a watch on this. And now when these amendments have come back again, here we are back. Because in this amendment they have said that within a month, till 26th May, we can put in our objection and suggestion. So now we are here back, going to the people, telling them what is wrong with the amendments, that and what is going to be the impact. So if you are going to have houses in the fields, What's going to happen to food security? On top of the hill, if you are going to have construction, you cannot build on these slopey areas and green areas, to put it in simple term. You see, if you stand across Mandovi river and you see that Beti hill, completely, so what are we doing? We are completely destroying Goa and we are making it into a concrete jungle, and once it is destroyed, people will leave it and go. And who are the ones who are going to bear the consequences? Are people of Goa.
Yeah, thanks, ma'am. Armina, few of these, like Dean has enumerated a lot of these amendments. So could you give us some more details of the ones that are, which actually are in your face? Because many of these are literally in your face, but nobody knows about them. They are very, I don't know, I found them literally in your face. Basically, one of the reasons probably the people whom you all were fighting for at the regional, during the regional plan time, and you are being supported by the then opposition, are in government today. Both. Just to
at that time everybody supported, the DBA was
who
a
all X, Y, Z. I remember certain politicians you all were. Today they are in government, by the way, just to yes. Details of the one, because basically these are very open. They are not you're not hiding anything.
No, so the amendments are basically designed to take away from public participation into private participation. In other words, what they're doing is they're opening these little windows and little channels where people can privately approach the departments and the government to find the solutions, immediate solutions. But where everything goes wrong is this: the whole regional plan, outline development plans, regulations have to be done through a participatory process. The moment you create other channels to it, then you're disturbing this whole process which was there. In other words, something on which the whole public has voted on and has supported, or majority have supported, now gets subverted because there's somebody who's come there and put something over there. Now, regulations like this are really, to me, they're very bothersome. Okay, when you start saying that if you got a 6-meter road, you can build 180 units, if I'm not mistaken, 180 units.
180.
180 units if you got a
Mega
6-meter road. All right, the length of that road is not defined, which means if it could be a 10-kilometer 100 road, and and provided the plot is more than 20,000 square meters, and you've got 4 plots or 5 plots of 20,000 square meters and above, you're talking about 180 into 10, or 4, whatever is the number of plots which are existing over there. So what are we talking about? There seems to be, they've just thrown out a whole system of engineering these roads. They've thrown out a whole system or logic by which the earlier plans were arrived at, and then it's in complete contradiction with whatever they have done in terms of their subdivision regulations. The subdivision regulations set standards. Now it's like, if you want to build a house, you should have a room of 10 square meters. Okay, but if you don't have a staircase that is wide enough to come up to that, you can put 40 such rooms but of 5 square meters. It's no problem. So there's on one level there's the solution, and on the other level there's this thing, a standard, and the standards and the solutions are in complete contradiction. All right. So the issues that Dean has raised are basically, as per him, categorized as amendments to the Town and Country Planning Act, amendments to the building regulations, and amendments to the plans. And the plans right now, they're fiddling with the outline development plans. And fiddling with the outline development plans, the way they go about is sad. For example, the Margao ODP, they've done the amendment under Section 39 of the Act. Section 39 says corrections due to cartographical errors or typographical errors.
Cartographical means map.
Yeah, in other words,
Map drawing.
The scale or the thing or the position or things like that. Now, on that basis, how can they suddenly start changing zones? The zones is a different process. Zone is a different process. Zone is a process by which you arrive at a conclusion after you've seen the total scenario, which means you'll study your demographics, you study your business opportunities, you study your this thing, you study your all these things, traffic, everything, and then you come forward to that. But that's not cartography. That's completely different. Yeah. So now we need to be able to understand whether the that there's a serious effort in town planning to do something positive, or whether we have absolute lack of skills in planning. No, but I would seriously question this, because when I see what is happening over there, to me, it brings this question about, and
Competence.
competence, absolutely.
But it's deliberate or is it competence?
Okay, we'll discuss this a little later, but believe me, these are very, very powerful brains at work in bringing these amendments. Competence, they're very competent people. Details on these building regulations.
So I think Dean's already gone in a lot of detail about what each amendment does. But one thing that Goa has which is unique is this silly idea of having the building code mixed with some what we call in planning development control regulations, the definitions of what's allowed in every zone and how high you can build in every zone and what FAR you can give in every zone. We, during the regional plan time, took that out of the plan and put that into the building code. And now, for many years, they messed around only with the building specifications. Now, in 2022 September, they tried to mess with the planning aspects in the building regulations and brought them out through just a few words published in the Gazette as an amendment to the building regulations. Luckily, at that time, a lot of Goans got to know, and there was a huge shusha. There were 2,000 objections filed, and our planning minister said that he's respecting the will of the people. He took them back. Now 6 months later in May, we see 11 of those 17 bringing their head back. Word for word the same thing. At most what was 15% FAR has been reduced to 10% FAR, but the road width reduction is word for word the same. The unlimited subdivision of agricultural zones is word for word the same. The restriction on building in the rice fields, saying the only condition that allows you to build in the rice fields is the elevation of the field at the time of site inspection, is exactly the same. And just see how it's worded. None of the state departments, Land Survey and Records or TCP, has elevation details. Look at your Form 1 and 14. It's not there. So who's to stop someone from going and filling the field, elevating it up to road level, and then calling the planner for site inspection? The planner has to write what he sees on the site. The planner will say, oh, the field is not low-lying. So it's open to development. You build one farmhouse in one corner of that field, then you take advantage of the subdivision clause. You now don't have to subdivide your plots to a minimum size of 1 acre and only 2 times. You can subdivide infinite times. So you just subdivide out the portion that has the farmhouse on it, sell that to a third party, and then you've got a fresh field which is elevated already. Go and apply for a fresh farmhouse, build another 1,000 square meter farmhouse, subdivide that out. Again, you still have more field. So this is an iterative process which stops, which goes against everything that we learn when we look at planning. Planning needs to lock certain zones where you cannot develop and identify other zones where you can develop. If you start to, through building amendments, open up the non-development zones for unrestricted development, in fact, it may reach a point, especially with the numbers that Dean said, where it may be possible to build more in the agriculture zone soon than to build in the settlement zones.
I know. The one thing, we're almost out of time in this segment, but Dean, people come to Goa for a certain USP, as he so ultimately, who is going to, this is the same thing you keep on using for tourism also. I mean, Goans, because ultimately the politicians are making these are Goans. Are Goans going to kill the golden goose that is Goa with all this?
It's a very simple answer. What is needed and what is greeded for. It's really, because it's what is happening is complete greed. It's now all speculative development.
And ridiculous greed. It's just not,
And I just like to tap on a couple of points which are there really, because this thing of subdividing the land, basically building the corner is one danger, so you can go infinitely. But the regional plan was prepared with eco-sensitive zones. Eco-sensitive
That's
1
what I also wanted to
and eco-sensitive 2. Eco-sensitive 1 was no-go, fields, forests, this thing. Now it's open it up completely. So where's the sense of having a regional plan if you open up everything for development? It has specific areas for settlement area and has specific areas which are meant for green space, where you get your oxygen from, your water, your food, everything. That has to be defined clearly, and it's usually 5 to 6 times the area of a settlement area. The moment we lose that, we lose our support systems.
That Morji land which was
Yeah, so I'm
converted
talking about
was
Morji land
not-
is a classic example. Now this Morji land, which is now 65,000 square meters, this is converted under an error. This land came to us at the state level committee and was rejected. It was clearly rejected. I have asked for now, under right to information, even though as a member of the state level committee, I had asked 7 years ago for all those documents, rejected. Today I received an answer, I asked again, rejected. They say, what, it's too much work for us to give you this thing. Everything is prepared, everything is marked, why we rejected thing, why we've included something in the plan. All this is there. This is the level of opaqueness which is really disturbing. That means the government does not want to let the people know what is happening behind the doors.
Absolutely. Now we'll stop it on this, because talking about this people's participation, we will talk about this in the second segment. But one thing I would like to say now, I mean, you guys are planners, you all are professionals, architects, planners, X, Y, Z. For me as a layman, I like Goa because Goa is Goa. People come here to live in Goa because Goa is Goa. If we wanted to live in Bombay, could have gone to Bombay. I think most of us can afford to live in Bombay. Or if you wanted to go, Rajasthan or Bihar or Delhi, or we could do. But people come to Goa because it's Goa. So I don't know what the politicians are doing, or what these bureaucrats and these so-called competent people in departments are doing, trying to destroy Goa for Goans ultimately, because
True.
we are living because Goa is Goa. We don't have too much of huge industrial thing. It's only because of the place we are living there. Okay, with this little bit of utopia, I will close this segment. It's very interesting, but more interesting is why I want to go to why these things possibly could happen. We'll do this in the next segment. Thanks guys, and see you on the other side. Keep watching Goa 365.